On Monday, she takes a walk with Johnny. On Tuesday, she has a talk with Jim. On Wednesday, she likes to dance with Tommy. On Thursday...
Hello and welcome to another episode of My Index to Sex. I'm Lynn Ferguson, a big vanilla Scottish woman living in the San Fernando Valley, which is hot and completely not in a sexy way. And I'm joined by my pal Sephe Haven, at one point America's #1 escort. In each episode, Sephe delves into the index box of all her past clients, and I ask her all the questions everyone wants answered. Usually. Except, in some episodes we get completely distracted because Sephe will mention something in passing which is completely normal for someone with a knowledge of the workings of the sex industry and completely random for someone like me. Like Billy the Drunken Donkey. That's why in this episode we're talking about all things Greek. Now if you're Greek, or know a Greek, or watched a movie about a Greek, you might want to tune in. Glad you could join us.
On Thursday, she takes a chance with Tim.
So tell me about the Greek guy who was not Greek.
Okay.
Zorba.
Zorba. Except he wasn't Greek. I
know. But you know what? Look, the thing is like, do you know this story of Zorba?
Yes.
No, what, the real Zorba? Not your Zorba. Like, because there's Zorba the Greek, right?
From the movie.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Was he really Greek, Zorba?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah? Do you feel like this guy wanted to be Zorba? That's why he told you he was Greek?
You're just making a whole story around this. You've got an imagination going crazy. I'm not even sure the actual story is this good. We should just go with your story on this.
You know what happens with you though, right? Like, because we record these stories, right? We record these little podcasts. And I come to the podcast and I think I know what I'm going to hear, right? I make assumptions when I go, we're doing my index to sex. Sephe, she's going to pull one of her index cards out of her box and we're going to talk about it. And then we'll go, we'll talk about this guy. But it never works like that. Because what happens is that you say something and I'm like, no. Like in the last episode when we were talking about the best way to wash dildos, I was like, these are conversations my mother never told me I'd be having these conversations. So that's why my imagination goes crazy. So tell me about the Greek guy who was not Greek.
Okay, was not Greek. So I was a gentleman that called me and he asked, well, let me just say.
Right.
So I had been working a long time and I was at this point the #1 escort in the country. So I had a little more leeway with how I scheduled my time. And I knew that even if I took time off like a week or two, I would still have a lot of clients when I came back. Whereas before I never had that freedom. So now I have this freedom and I could travel. So I did. And whenever I traveled, I would recommend other girls to my clients that I liked. So I knew that I wouldn't lose my clients. They would see my friend if they had the urge, and that I would see them when I got back.
Kind of girls, would you was it like ones with moustaches and stuff like that? Ones that were like, would you recommend people who were as good as you or people who were like, just a little bit dodgy so that they didn't decide to move on?
Oh, God, no. You have such a mind, Lynn.
I know.
What is going on in your head?
Well, oh God, it's like Narnia in there. You don't want to know. One thought past the second one, you'll find Mr. Tumnus, and then beyond that, it's all dodgy. So tell me.
So, no, I had several girlfriends that I trusted that I knew if I sent one of my clients to that she would take really nice care of him and he would be okay. I wouldn't want to send him to somebody one time it happened. I sent him to somebody I thought would be okay and she wasn't. So that could be bad too. But no. I see you going to interrupt me. I'm not letting you go there yet. First, I'm going to tell you the Greek thing. Oh, okay. It's probably not even that good anymore. Now it's all like we've blown this up. Anyway, so I was able to take vacations. And so in my mind, while I was alone, and I either had clients in my apartment or I was completely alone. So it was really weird. It was high energy and it's like backstage with nothing. So in my mind, I was like making other lives for myself. And I thought, I'm going to learn Greek, the language, and I'm going to go to Greece and I'm going to buy a little house in Santorini overlooking the caldera. and I'm going to become like this Greek goddess, mermaid, and I will live in my fantasy life of who I think I am. And so I did, in my free time, learn Greek, but really sort of a weird language to pick, I guess. And I got to Greece, and the first day I saw the signs, they're all in that different alphabet.
It's a whole different alphabet, right?
Yes. Yeah. And my first thought was, it's not old Greek to me. I understand it, and it was wonderful. I stayed for quite a while. I almost didn't come back. I was like, oh, as soon as I buy a house, I might just stay. And I called my girlfriends and I'm like, I'm staying an extra week. And I had a donkey that I rented all the time. And his name was Vasilis. I know. His name was Vasilis, which means Billy.
His name was what? Billy.
Well, Vasilis, which is Billy in Greek.
Ah, all right. Because I was like, it's named Willie. I'm like, you don't call your donkey Willie. Well, maybe you do call your donkey Willie, but you know what I mean. Billy seems like a more reasonable name for a donkey. So we're in Greece. We've got a donkey.
Yes. And so because I was a single woman and it's a small island and, a lot of the women were either, they behaved differently. They were meant to behave. And this was also back in the 90s. So the only people out late at night were the men in these bars eating, onions and olives and drinking and ouzo. And I was a single woman living on my own. And the men were like, up for grabs, So I would take the donkey to go into town.
Sorry, my mind went somewhere else. I'm with you.
Oh, it's so romantic to me, because the steps were old. Everything was old. I mean, Jesus practically walked there. You could see his steps, to his footsteps. It was just really old and fantastic and great for the imagination. And nobody knew me and it was a different language. And I could just imagine anybody I wanted to be. I was that person. And I wore flowing gowns. I was like Isadora Duncan, And I went to the grocery store and the guys in the town would hit on me, but very boldly. And I would sort of say, no. And they got to a point where they were not aggressive with me, but with my donkey. So I would go into the store and I would come out and my donkey would be drunk, which is kind of like putting sugar in somebody's gas tank, because they would get the donkey drunk. So I had no way home.
That's horrible to both you and the donkey. What the hell? Billy's just hanging about being a donkey? What the hell?
I know, now he's like, I felt terrible for him, but I couldn't get home then. So I sometimes would hang out a little bit and wait for, the donkey to be a little better, rideable.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would just put the groceries on him and he and I would walk side by side. But eventually I stopped taking the donkey because I didn't want him to get hurt. Yeah, but otherwise the guys would sort of say, well, I can give you a ride back on my Papa Key, which was the little motor scooters, which always led to trouble. So I thought, well, no. And I met this guy there. His name was Yorgos. And Yorgos was...
His name was Zorba.
No, this has nothing. His name is actually Yorgos.
Yorgos.
This is not the guy. This
is the guy before the guy.
This is the guy before the guy. This might be a boring story. I don't know.
No, it's not.
But I was...
How can it be a boring story when you've got a drunk donkey in it? Behave yourself, Sephe. It's a good story. Right, anyway.
Yorgos was on this island called Paros. It was the Cyclades Islands. And it was I went to Paris because I thought they have a theater company there. And I thought, well, I could tell them I'm from Juilliard and we could do Greek theater. And then I could speak Greek and and I'm going to quit escorting and live here. And I met this guy named Yorgos and he barely spoke any English. I was just minor on Greek. So we spent a lot of time reading each other's charades. And then he asked me if I wanted to go out another day. And I said, sure. And the next night, not that night, I went out with myself and met this Italian guy who told me he was from Sicily and with the mafia. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm like, that is not attractive. I don't know. Murder is not attractive. So change your lie up. But anyways, he walked me back to the place I was staying, which was an all-women's hotel. That was it. And the next day, the woman who ran the place was a German woman. And the phone rang, and it's one phone. And she called me and she said, yes, you have a phone call from Yorgos. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. So I came to the phone and he was screaming at me, putana, basically I'm a whore. And I thought, well, how does he know? I mean, The word spread all the way across the world.
Billy the donkey got drunk.
My website, I don't know. And I was thinking, why? Then apparently he had seen the Italian guy with me. And anyways, it doesn't matter because it was stupid. But he just told the woman who owned the hotel that I had to go, that I couldn't stay on the island. I had to get off the island. And she said, you really do have to leave. And I said, you can't kick an entire person off of an entire Greek island. And she said, yes, you can. You have to go. You can't stay here. I said, why? Like, why? She said, well, the police will come and get you, and then they'll bring you to the port, and you can get a ride to another island. And I thought, why? What? Turned out Yorgos was not just Yorgos. Yorgos ran the food distribution for the entire of the Cyclades Islands.
Oh.
So if you messed with him, you would get no food, like no ingredients for your food. So I had to leave that island to go to another island, which I did. But when I got to the other island, first I called a girlfriend of mine who was an escort who became a lawyer. Like she was putting herself through law school as an escort, but now she became a lawyer. So I called her and I said, can they do that? I'm American. They can't kick me off, and we need to sue them. And she's like, well, you really can't sue. You can't. No. I'm like, but that's illegal. She's like, it's not. It's their country. There's no methods there. And so anyway, so I got to the next place, and I wanted to buy a home. I saw a beautiful little place on top of the hill, and I thought, this is it. And it was affordable to what I had saved up. And I thought, okay, so I have the money. I went to see it. It was perfect. And the guy would not sell it to me because I was a woman without a man. And so
Oh my God.
he had to talk to my father or my brother or my husband, or somebody had to sign for me. Now, I don't know if it's still like this, but it was that way on this little island many years ago. So I left and went home.
Right.
With all that in mind, you know how when you go on a trip that just, all that was inside of me. And I started back to work. So this gentleman had called to see me. And on the phone, I had on my website that I loved Greece. I just loved it. I had just come from there and I loved it. And he said on the phone, I would like to see you. Do you speak Greek? And I said, in Greek, yes, I do. And he said, okay, I would love to see you. And I said, okay. And I thought, this is going to be great. I just got back from Greece and I'm going to see a guy.
Oh, you're not going to tell me it was Yorgos. He didn't follow you back with Billy the donkey, and no.
You have to wait. No, just wait. And so the man came over, and he was a little bit older than I expected, which is fine. He was probably in his mid-70s.
Right.
Very well turned out. He was wearing a gorgeous suit. His gray hair was kind of slicked back a bit. He just looked really nicely dressed, but not very warm, not smiley, not very happy, And he came in and I asked him to sit down, and he did for a minute, but he seemed annoyed by it because he wanted to get things going. And I thought, what do you want to get going?
Yeah.
And so I started to speak to him a little bit in the little Greek that I knew well, and started a little conversation. Then I told a joke in Greek just to show him I could joke around in the language. And he stared at me as if I was speaking Greek, which I was. And, I had that expression of it's all Greek to me, woman. And so finally I said to him, do you not speak Greek? He said, I do just like to hear it. And he said, why don't we just go into the other room? So this was really fast, and also him directing the show, not me, which I didn't care for. But I thought, you know what? I don't care. I don't have the patience. I just had come from a wonderful trip, and all right, whatever. So we went into the other room, and we get into the bed, and he starts poking around back there in the wrong spot. And and I was like, what are you No. Come around the front door. Come around to the front.
Oh.
And he said, you spoke Greek. And I think what that meant was, Greek is the backside. And
No.
yes, and I, being a sex worker, I probably should have thought of that. I just was like, really? Oh, I guess that is Greek. And he was so mad that I said I spoke Greek, which was supposed to be code for doing backdoor stuff. And I didn't. And I had dragged him all the way away from his work and his life and got him all the way to my apartment. And now I wasn't even going to put out. And I had bait and switched him,
Oh my God, angry Zorba. It feels to me that you've got a thing that you stay away from Greece. It's got a stay away, Sephe. It seems not right for you.
I love it. I love it. But so he didn't even finish the hour or the time. He was mad and he wanted his money back, and I didn't give it to him. Then he was double mad. And I said, well, it's a misinterpretation, but you're welcome to stay and we can have a lot of other fun.
Yeah.
And he didn't want anything at all but backdoor.
Really?
Yeah, that was it. And really felt like I had purposely bait and switched him.
Like it's not my business, but I would suggest that if you really liked the back door, right? If that was your thing, then when you were doing the conversation, you'd probably be better talking about like Home Depot or Home Base or something. Do you know what I like about the Home Base? They've got a very nice selection of the back doors. Then you would know, right?
Well, in all fairness to him, in terms of the miscommunication, it was a term, Greek. Do you do Greek? I don't and didn't. So I just never thought about it. And it wasn't on my, like, girls who did that, I guess, put on their website Greek and then an extra price for it, $300 more or whatever they charged for it. And I didn't know that because I didn't have a computer at the time.
And so you just been like literally announcing in code, come through my back door, front door or back, both open. That's what you're basically.
Yeah, and girls make extra money for that. So I guess that was why they, well, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
I don't really understand it, I have to say. Well, there's a lot about the stuff that I don't understand, but everybody has their own thing about it. But you've described Zorba as this 70-year-old man, and I'm like, and he's not very happy anyway, and I'm like, okay. Well, he's probably not happy because he thinks that every time he sees Greek, that means go through the back door. It must be complicated, and especially in New York where there's a lot of Greek restaurants, right?
A lot of miscommunication.
Do you know the origin of it? Like why? I mean, you speak Greek and everything, but why? I mean,
I'm going to venture a guess. So
What?
I think back in the olden days that men in Greece were also, they could be with their wives, or they could be with courtesans, or they could be with boys. So I think that culturally it just became known as Greek. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I'm not in the escort business, but I would very strongly advise anybody listening to this who is in the escort business, stop with the Greek stuff. In the conversation that you're having before that has to stay innocent, you go, all right, do you like a little bit of home improvement? Yes, I do. Where do you go for your home improvement? Well, I love the Home Depot because they do a great selection of back doors. And then everybody will be clear. Then you know what you're going to get, right?
I guess.
Yeah. You can arrive through the front door, and if you're special, then you can come through the back door.
I mean, some people are built, women I'm talking about, some women are built where that's an okay place. I'm not built quite that way. And some women really love it. I liked it and I did it for extra money and it was something that I enjoyed too. It wouldn't have been a bad thing. I just completely misunderstood the situation.
So tell me, where are you at now? Looking back, where are you at now in terms of, with what's his face, the angry food supplier, and Billy the drunk donkey, and the man that wouldn't sell the house? Do you still love Greece, or has it put you off?
I loved Greece. There was kind of a lawlessness about it at the time. And so there was something really sexy about the music and the food and I love Greece. I don't know, it's inside my body. I just love the music. I love everything about it. And at the time, of course, we all smoked cigarettes and the Greeks were heavy smokers. I don't smoke anymore, but it was just this kind of luxurious, sexy place. And then after that happened, when I left that trip, I flew from Greece to Heathrow. And of course, you go to England and there's something rules. There's a lot of rules. And I felt really safe. I was like, oh, thank God there's rules here. Because in Greece, if something bad happened, there was nobody to turn to. And also, because it was an island, you could go out during the day and say you went to the beach and you got oil on you. And the wind, I don't know if you've seen the posters of those islands in Greece. They're so beautiful, but what they don't show you is the wind is so strong. There's wind all the time. It's so loud. It's howling wind. It's like a man's voice going all the time.
The sound that a man would do or a lady would do when they are doing the Greek, I would have thought. Whoa. Whoa. Maybe that's why it's called.
But then you would get back to wherever you were living, and because you were on an island, a lot of times the electricity would go out, and they only had a certain amount in a reserve or whatever, so they would then power up the airport. They wouldn't necessarily power up your water, so water was pumped up by electricity. So you could go a good week without water in your bathtub. And so I would shave like one leg one day, one leg another, and carry jugs of water to put on myself just in case. I looked horrible there, and I smelled. I was like, "What is that smell?" Oh, it's me. It's not the donkey. It's me.
Oh, now that is the one question I have to ask you. What happened to Billy the donkey?
He was an animal that was rented out, to people who, I guess, needed a donkey. So he was fine. I mean, he was a sweet pie of a donkey. He just, I didn't have a close relationship with him. There was no, but, because I have close relationships with animals, but I didn't have Billy and I were never like, oh, come sleep in my bed or anything.
Who did you have the closest relationship with? Was it Billy the donkey or Zorba, the angry 70-year-old man who's not Greek?
Well, in that case, it was definitely the donkey, but
You see,
I don't know. It was just I would still go back to Greece. I love Greece. I just know now what I know. And also, I think that was many years ago. And I think things have changed greatly.
Is that still the code for that? I know you're not.
I think it is the code for it, yes. And now I know. And there's also, there's codes that everybody probably knows that I didn't know. Now that Trump has been president, we know the golden showers, and we know,
Yeah.
those kind of things, which, I guess you find out on the job.
Is there any other countries involved? Like if it was like toe sucking or something like that, is that called being a Spaniard or whatever?
Well, I don't know. Really good question. Yeah. Well, there is Russian. Yes, there's Russian.
What's the Russian?
Well, this was my understanding. Maybe people will have a different interpretation, but when I was working, it used to be Russian was when, was that Russian? Oh God, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I'm going to say what I thought it was. People probably say, that's not what it is. It was when the man was laying down and you were on top, but facing the other way, which they also called reverse cowboy or cowgirl or something. But I think someone called that Russian. Or no, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm totally wrong. That's reverse cowboy. Russian was when you put a lot of oil in your cleavage and then put his in between and you just rub him with your breasts and you squeeze it.
Any idea how? I mean, like, I know how, but like, I know that you'll know how, but why is it called doing the Russian?
I don't know. But sometimes when I did it and I looked down at it, because there I was and there he was and everything. And the head comes peeping up like a groundhog. And it's and it kind of looks like a big butt in a groundhog coming up over and over again.
It's going to rain for another 40 days. We should call this the geography of sex. Who knew? I'm definitely going to think about that now, that if anybody ever asks me if I enjoy Greek. Like, not particularly. It's very windy when you do Greek.
I know, it's so weird, all these little terms. Everything has its secret language, doesn't it?
She's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
Well, that's all from us for this episode, and I have to say, when someone asks you if you enjoy a bit of Greek, now you'll know they might not be meaning Captain Corelli's mandolin. Or maybe they will. I feel I've learned stuff this week. Mostly, though, about how much I don't know. Join us again next time when Sephe will be choosing another card from her box of former clients on My Index to Sex.
She's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
You have been listening to My Index to Sex, produced by Ferdal LLC. The music was performed by Chesney Hawkes, and you can learn more about Sephe Haven at sephehaven.com. Go to mitspodcast.com to check out the show notes for more details, including how to stay in touch, give feedback, and ask questions. All the best.
Sunday's my only time with that bozo of mine, 'cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.